Most of the cultures around the world depend on either tradition for their culture or the stripping away of previous cultures for their culture. So I think that Black American culture is in a very unique space where our culture is reliant on innovation. We are constantly creating new parts of our culture. Not to say that other people in other parts of the world are not creating new parts of their culture, but tradition is very important in a lot of cultures around the world. And then when you think of Wahite supremacy, the stripping of culture is often important, but it manifests different. If we come to the US, the melting pot, which people often think of as the mixed salad example, where you keep your culture, but the melting pot in true sense of the word is the ingredients kind of lose their individuality, and so a lot of the melting pot idea of the US is assimilation, not keeping your culture. This idea is still in its infancy, so I'm still working it out. The main way I thought about it is accents. So there are various Black American accents, there are various Wahite American accents, a couple other groups that I know of for sure. There could be others, but if you want to let me know, put it down in the comments. Indigenous Americans have their own accent because they was already here. And then Mexican Americans tend to have their own accent. And when I talk about accent, I'm talking about an accent that is created here, not from where the people were originally from. So I'm not talking about a Mexican accent, I'm talking about a Mexican American accent. When I talk about Black Americans, obviously it's not African accents, it's Black American accents. This is kind of my Roman Empire, where me thinking about like what is an Asian American accent, not what is an accent where they're making fun of their parents, or an accent where they're mimicking a Chinese, Japanese, Korean accent. Is there a Korean American accent? Is there a Chinese American accent? Because when you think about it, a lot of Asians, a lot of Hispanic people, even a lot of the Black diaspora, they typically assimilate into a culture, and then that's where their accent comes from. So the ones who want to live the American dream and kind of, if you think about the No Sabo kids, their grandparents or parents don't want them to learn their language, so they're typically going to assimilate into the Wahite American society. So those Asian, Hispanic, and other people have a Wahite American accent. As we all are born into this Wahite supremacist structure, it's kind of impossible to get away from. So even if some immigrant people decide to assimilate into Black American culture, you're still going to have that code switch where you're still going to have maybe your Wahite people accent. But some people do choose to assimilate into Black Americanness. I think that's the crux of what goes into the discourse on Black Americanness, which when I created the Black American site, I had to, as I looked for more things that were part of Black American culture, I had to change my definition of Black Americanness, because oftentimes there are people who are not ethnically Black, people who are Caribbean American, people who are from the continent who become American, who have added to Black American culture, oftentimes through the assimilation into Black American culture, not necessarily because of the culture that they came from always. Sometimes it is because of the culture that they came from. Sometimes it's interesting that people are so very proud of the country that they came from, but not proud enough to create their own identity in America. And I'm not saying that as if I don't want people to become Black American. It's just that the same thing that people judge Americans for, if we were to go to someone else's country and then center ourselves, people are more than willing to come to the US, which has an already established Black American culture, and then center themselves in the already established culture, but simultaneously be very proud of where they're from. This video is actually in me wanting people to double down and create their own version of American culture. I would love to see what that is. And I'm sure there's kinds, particularly in a place like New York City, I'm sure that there's kind of microcosms of this that already exist. But I don't like the idea of people centering themselves in Black American culture when you would egregiously talk bad about Black Americans if we went to your country and did the same thing. That's my only issue with it. I don't have any problem with people identifying as Black American racially. But I think that a lot of the discourse comes from people's ease of assimilating into Black American culture because Black American culture is set up to be taken by other people. So again, this is not actually to be separatist. This is actually from me loving the different aspects of culture. I'm actually really sad when I went to college and learned that there are people, particularly I learned this about Hispanic people when they, some of my peers did not know Spanish because their parents or grandparents didn't want them to know. I was actually sad for them. I really want everybody to hang on to their culture, to be honest. This is me begging you to hang on to your culture and add to that part of Americanness. It's not me wanting you to not be a part of Black American culture. It's me kind of calling out the indignance of holding these two thoughts simultaneously while also judging Americans that have been here for centuries. Oftentimes when you think about accent that comes from a hyphenated country, American, it's going to be the person moved from their country to America. They're not even first generation, they are the immigrant, and then they're learning English, and so they do have an accent, but by the time their children come, their children either have a Wahite American accent or a Black American accent. One thing that is like my Roman Empire is that when do people create their own version of their culture? And so because of the history of Black American culture, us being exported, and because of the relationship with Black American culture where Wahite people set up that you can always take Black American culture, people are always taking our culture and making it their own. I saw a good video that someone did about how when we think of hip hop, oftentimes people name the Caribbean Americans that added to hip hop, which I'm not denying. But something that I thought about is, and I think this is what she said as well, is that what is the unique part from your culture that you added? Were you a Caribbean American who assimilated into Black American culture, and then when you were in the space, you added to it? Or were you a Caribbean American who added important parts of your culture into the thing? And I don't think this needs to be like, I'm not saying this as a separatist thing. It's just like, it's just a thing that I pontificate on when I think about our people creating their own version of culture when they move to the US. What is Jamaican American culture? Not Jamaican culture, not a Jamaican who is now Black American. What is Jamaican American culture? What is Korean American culture? What is Venezuelan American culture? I think oftentimes immigrants assimilate into what is already established because of the history of their countries, relying on tradition. They are innovating, they are evolving, but tradition is king. With Black American culture, we're always used to creating new, so it's very easy for Black American culture to have such a big stake in America, in the US. With Wahite American culture, it is the stripping away, and it's ever changing as well, because their ever changingness is from power. So they take away, give whoever is Wahite based on what they want to do. Again, this idea is in its infancy, and I will continue to add to it as I think about it more.